video in the series on the MyDate development code, and I think there'll just be one more video after this, and then we'll be done with Chapter 9 videos. We can continue with the next chapters. Now I'm going to leave you with the main driver here. I talked about these particular methods here. They're useful utility methods. But another method that would be really nice to have is a method that says, well, if I would take X and add to that the number of days, say 300, what would be the date that adding 300 days would be? So if I said July 12th, 2020, okay, great, that's the starting point. If I add 300 days to that, what would be the date of it? Okay, now you'll see that I didn't have an error here because I added some code to my MyDate class that we're going to take a look at. And let's take a look at that code. Let's go over here, make it bigger. And so here's the code that I'm going to have here. All right, I'm going to say I have a method called addDays. It doesn't return anything. And if it doesn't return anything, generally what happens is you're modifying the current object. Okay, so certainly it's not going to be a static method, because by adding 300 days to the current object, certainly the month field, day field, and possibly the year field is going to change. And so here's the deal. If days is negative, you want to go back in history. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, I'm going to call another method called Decrement Date. And this negative value is going to be positive. So if I passed it negative 300, I'm going to decrement the date by 300 and do the calculations there. Otherwise, if days is bigger than 0, which in this case would be because 300 would come in, 300 is bigger than 0, I'm going to increment the date. And if days happens to be 0, we're not going to do anything. That's really cool, because now if we don't need to call a particular method. Adding 0 to the date won't change the current methods. It won't change the current fields. And so I'm going to talk about incrementing, because that's going to be the easiest method to look at. I'll let you look at decrementing. But the whole idea is if I want to add 300 days to this, what I'm going to do is pass 300 here, number of days, and I'm going to have a for loop that goes from 0 to 300. In other words, I'm going to execute this code 300 times. I'm going to increment the date. Okay, and now what happens is obviously you can't just keep incrementing the day, because there's 30 days in a month, 31 days in a month, and then you got the complicated leap year situation with February being 28 or 29. And so, okay, we increment the day. Now we figure out what the maximum days in the month is going to be. So I call that same method that you pass it the month. Is it a leap year? That's going to be the max days in a month. And if the month is 2 and it's a leap year, okay, what's going to happen is I'm going to increment the max days in month to be 1 more than what's in there. Actually, I don't need to do that. Actually, I don't need to do this next line, 61 and 62, because this method here takes care of the situation whether you have a leap year. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this code entirely. And so, hey, I increment the day. Is it bigger than the max days in month? If it is, then what you're going to do is increment the month, set the day to 1, and if you increment the month and it's bigger than 12, you're into another year. And you're going to do this code 300 times, and that should work. Now, let's take a look, see if it works. Run this, driver, let's see what we get here. Run this code. It should be, May 8th, 2021. And I think there's a website. I'll give you a link to a website that I gotta believe works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this website, and what I'm going to do is bring that into view and go to the website, paste, and we'll say, what was the starting date? Well, certainly it's got 300 days. Let me put 300 days in there. And what was the starting point of this? This is going to be 7/12. Okay, 7/12. So let's bring back starting date 7/12/2020. Calculate the new date. And May 8th, 2021. So I think we're doing something right. All right, so we'll minimize that. I'll keep that link in there for you to look at. And so decrement date's pretty much the same. We're going backwards, and you can take a look at the code. And I think we don't need this code. I was doing some other calculations here. We don't need this because my days in month actually takes care of the leap year situation, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, that's a good method there. Now, in looking at this, I'm saying, geez, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to say something like, see, the problem with this code, there's always a problem with code. You just have to work around it. X, we start off with this, and we add 300 days to X. What you need to do is, say you want to save the original date. Well, you can't save the original date because the code isn't designed to do that. It's going to change the X to be 300 days in the future. Okay, so how do we fix that? Well, here's the deal. Here's what you're going to do. You might think you do something like this. MyDate save equals X. Okay, so we'll save that. MyDate, not MyDate. MyDate, save it. We'll increment X, and let me just print save. Save. Oh, spell it right. Save. Okay, do you think it'll work? Let's take a look. Nope. Nope. It doesn't work because all you're doing here is save is actually another reference to the original X. So you have actually two pointers pointing to the same object. So if you incremented that object with 300 days in the future, then both pointers pointing to the same object is just going to be reflective of that change. What you need to do is make a copy of that date, and the way you would do that is there's a couple of ways. Let's save it by saying new date, just copy it again, my date. Let's go here, 7/12/2020. So you've made a copy of it, and so changing X 300 days in the future isn't going to change save. Save will still be the original. So let me go ahead and print out X. So what should theoretically happen is save is the original, X is going to be 300 days in the future. I think the problem with this is I really don't like having to duplicate these parameters. How about we do this? We'll pass it X. We'll pass it X. We're going to have a constructor that looks inside another object, and based on the value of that other object, it creates a new object. So what I'm going to do here is have Eclipse help me create this fix. So this is actually another constructor. In this case, the constructor takes one parameter, which is not an integer, it's just another date, so we can look inside that. Let's do a quick fix, and let's add constructor right there. So we're going to add a constructor to the class, and put that there. And here's what we're going to do. See, X is already constructed. See, this is a parameter of an object that's already been created. All we're going to do is try to construct this current object, this.setDate. Okay, and what we're going to do is say, well, let's take a look at X, x.month, grab the X month, okay, grab the X's day and the X's year, and we've now initialized this current object to be a copy of this guy. And so let's save this, save that, drive it, Okay, no errors, and if I go ahead and run this, there you go. We've got the original date, 300 days in the future, and we can also go backwards, decrement, just by taking that minus 300. And let's go back here, and that's, okay, we'll take on faith that that's worked, that's right. And now, let's go back here, private data, private, okay, these in particular methods, I don't want to be responsible for people using these methods. That's why I made them private. Those methods are only exist for addDays to do its job. So the world should only be able to see addDays, and that's what I made. That's the way I designed this class. Okay, I think we'll leave it with that. I think there's just one more video after this, and the idea in that other video is I'm going to redesign this class. So because, you know, this switch statement really bothers me. And the problem is, okay, I have that switch statement in a whole bunch of places. And if you think about it, maybe let's leverage the array. We haven't used arrays in this class. Okay, maybe using an array to store the number of days in a month might simplify our code a little bit, and we're going to look at that in the next video. So the logic is done. The logic is basically there. This is a rewrite of this class using arrays, and that shouldn't change the driver. The driver doesn't care. That's called data encapsulation. The driver doesn't care how I do the work. It's just that it just cares that the work gets done correctly. All right, we'll see you in the next video. Take care.